Hi and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am Ashley and I am the owner and CEO of Unabashedlyou, which I'll link below. I create beautiful artwork with pops of color, and it was birthed from a desire to see women who look like me represented in a positive way. In this tutorial, we will be using Procreate. For information on how to download, how much it costs, please see my link below. Lastly, my tutorials are designed to be nice and relaxing, so feel free to get a glass of wine, cup of tea, get real comfy, and let's get started. Hi, and welcome to Draw With Me. Today we're going to be drawing an eye. As usual, we're going to start with a screen-sized canvas in Procreate. We're going to be using our studio pen. You can find that under inking. And then if you go down the list, you'll see studio pen down here. And then we're going to make sure that we have the color black selected. And the size brush we're going to be using is size 4. So what we're going to do first is the outline of the eye. So what I like to do is I create the top of the eye and then a little bit of swoop at the end, and that's kind of like the eyelashes that come off the end. And then we're going to take a swoop here. This is the inner portion of the eye that hits closest to the nose. And then we're going to take a nice big bowl type shape and bring it back up to the eyelash portion of the eye. So next we're going to be creating the pupil and the iris. The pupil is basically the small black circle on the middle of your eye, and then the iris is the colorful portion that surrounds the pupil. So what Procreate has is this really cool tool where if you try to create any kind of curve or circle, it'll correct it for you so it doesn't look so wonky. So just to give you an example, I'm creating a circle here. It looks kind of weird, but if I keep my pen on the screen and don't pick it up, as you can see, it corrected it. It just made the edges smooth. One other thing to note, you're never really gonna see the entire iris when someone's looking at you, unless they're looking at you like this, like a weirdo. You're never really gonna see the entire thing. So when you draw your iris, make sure that you keep the pen on the paper, don't pick it up, so that'll correct the circle. And now we have our iris. So now we're going to draw the reflective part of the eye. As you can see, if you're looking at your own eye, there's a lot of different shapes that are actually going on in our eye to create that reflection. So we're just going to create a small circle here in the corner. Make sure you hold your pen down so that it corrects the circle. So that's our reflective area of our eye. And then we're going to do the pupil. So I just create a curve that goes behind the reflective area. Make sure you hold your pen down, and we've got our pupil. Because the pupil is always black, no matter whose eye it is, I always just go ahead and color that black. So now we're going to move on to the eyelashes. There are 2 different ways to draw eyelashes. If I'm drawing something that's very detailed, I'll draw each eyelash myself. If I'm doing more of an illustration, I'll just do what I like to call Princess Jasmine eyelashes. So if you've seen the 90s version of Aladdin, you'll see that she just kind of has this black line, and most of the princesses actually in Disney have this. They just have a black line that goes across and you just color it in. So I'll show you that one first. Basically, you're just going to create a line that follows the curve here and meets right back up here at the tip. And then we'll take that and we'll color it in, and you have your Princess Jasmine eyelash. The second way to draw eyelashes is to actually draw each eyelash individually, and this takes a little bit more of an advanced technique. Just one thing to remember is that your eyelash is curved, so on the outer part of your eye, they curve this way. Towards the middle of your eye, they're going to curve forward, which is actually going to look like a straight line when you're drawing it. And then towards the inside, they're going to curve this way. I'll start with an eyelash that goes this way. It's curving. Remember, the inside it's curving forward, but it looks like a straight line. And then the outside is curving this way. And what I'll do is I'll just keep following that curvature all the way to the end. And you're literally going to keep doing this over and over. This is how I like to do it. I started off as a fine artist. I like drawing as many elements as I can without assistance. Also remember that your eyelashes are not all the same length. So the edges of the eyelashes should differ. It creates more of a natural look. If you are into makeup, you will understand exactly what I'm saying. Think about this as if you're applying mascara to your eyelashes, or you're putting on faux lashes. There's a technique that goes into it. What I like to do is create small lines here towards the base, and it makes it feel like the lashes are actually thicker at the bottom and they taper off towards the top. And when you're satisfied with your eyelashes, then you can stop. Now you'll notice that there's little choppy lines here. What I like to do is I'll take my eraser, I'll make sure I have a hard brush with a hard edge, and then I'll just zoom in and erase those little lines. Just clean it up a little bit. Just like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. Once we get into the shading, you won't really notice that, you know, each line isn't perfect. And even in, you know, real life, the lines aren't perfect. Everybody has blemishes of some kind. When you are satisfied with your lashes, create some lines that make it feel like the eye is inset into the skin. I'll put a line here, and that just kind of shows where there's a fold of skin between the eye and the nose. And then I'll also draw another curve down here, which kind of shows the bottom of the lid, that your eye is sitting inside of your skin. Now that we have our eye, we can start coloring and shading. So what I like to do is I'll create duplicates of this layer, and I'll leave the top layer because that's going to be our outline, and I'll do the color on the bottom layers. Let's start with the iris. That's the colorful portion around the pupil. I'm going to select kind of like a greenish hazel color, and you want the color to not necessarily be light, not to be too dark, but kind of in the middle here. This is going to be the base color of our iris. So what I want to do is I'm going to pull this over and I'm going to fill it in. If I didn't create duplicates, I wouldn't be able to pull this color in because there would be no guidelines to show Procreate where I want the color filled. I would actually have to take my brush and color it in, and then go in and erase all of the different, you know, portions of it that went outside the line. This way I could just pull the color in, which is why I duplicate the outline. And so what we're going to do next is we're going to create what's called a clipping mask. So we're going to create another layer on top of the layer that's colored. We're going to tap that layer and we're going to select clipping mask. Basically what a clipping mask does is it lets Procreate know that the only portion that I want to draw on is the portion that is underneath the clipping mask, or the layer that the clipping mask is clipped to. As we do this, it'll make a little bit more sense. So we're going to take that same color, we're going to make a darker color here. And basically what we're doing now is we're creating the kind of shadow that your eyelid will cast over your eye. We're going to use our airbrushing brush, and we're going to be using medium brush, so make sure you have that selected. And make sure you're on the clipping mask and you have that darker color. And we're just going to shade. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. We're just gonna shade a little bit over the top, and as you can see, it's only showing up on the portion that the clipping mask is clipped to. And so we have a little bit of a shaded area on top. And then next we're going to take that same color, the base color. We just put our color dropper tool over that by holding our finger down on the color that we want. And as you can see, it shifted that over to what the color was. So if I put my finger here and hold down, it's going to shift to that color, the shaded area. And then if I put my finger on this other color, it's going to shift back up. And now we want to do a lighter color, more towards the white. I'm going to lower my brush just a little bit because we're going to be creating strokes. And then we'll just shade in little lines that go all the way around. And you can make it a little bit smaller to create a little bit more of a defined line here and there. And we just bring that around. and it creates kind of like light reflecting off the bottom of the eye. So you can see the eye is coming alive a bit. And then what I like to do next is I will take the layer that's underneath and we're going to fill in the white. It's kind of like an off-white color portion of our eye. I believe it's called the sclera. I could be pronouncing that wrong, but S-C-L-E-R-A. It's the white portion. I'm going to select stark white, and then I'm going to move this color wheel over to the yellow because our the white portion of our eye, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that anymore. The white portion of our eye is slightly off white, and it's slightly like a eggshell kind of color, and an eggshell color is slightly yellow. So we're just going to pull this white over, slightly over towards the yellow portion, and then we're going to take this off white and we're going to pull it in, and we have the white portion of our eye. So just like we created the shadow over the iris, we also want to create the shadow over the white portion of our eye so that it looks like the eyelid is sitting on top of the eye. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add another layer. I'm going to clip that layer to that white portion. I'm going to take the color from that white portion and make it slightly darker. We don't want to go too gray. We want to go slightly darker but more yellow. So we're following that shade. We're going to make sure we have our airbrushing brush selected. And then we're just going to, I'm going to make this brush a little bit bigger. The bigger you make the brush, the easier it is to kind of taper off the shading. And we're just going to shade across to make it look like there's a shadow casting on the eye. Now, for the last portion, create another layer. We don't want it on top of this layer because if we were to draw on top of the outline, it would actually go on top of the outline, as you can see, and we don't want that to happen. So we want this to be underneath the outline, not clipped to anything. You can toggle the clipping on and clipping off right here. And what we're going to do is create a skin tone. What I like to use for my skin tone is kind of between orange and red, and I'll pull this color over here. So you get kind of like, you know, all the skin tones here. If you go up, you have a lighter skin tone. If you go down, it gets darker. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of sit here in the middle. Make sure you have our airbrushing tool, and we're just going to create skin all the way around. Don't worry about it getting into the eye. I'll show you. This is a good lesson in layers because you'll see why layers are so important and why they make the drawing process easier. I'm just going to create a brown around the eye, and then, oh no, it's getting into, you know, the rest of my eye. All we're going to do is we're going to take this layer and we're going to pull it down to the bottom so that everything that's sitting on top is higher. So as you'll notice, some of that brown pulled into this reflective area. And what that basically means is that this reflective area doesn't have any color in it. So what we can do is just make sure we're still in that skin color, and then we will erase that skin color from that reflective area, just like that. So then what we'll do is we'll just create a little bit of a sheen on the skin. We're going to, again, create another layer. Clip that layer to the skin layer. Make sure that we have that base skin layer color selected. And then we're just going to do a little bit of a lighter color. We're going to pull it more towards the white. Make sure that we have our medium brush on. And then we're just basically going to create a little bit of a light color here. And then there's a little bit of a reflective area here. And as you can see, like if you're looking at your skin, the portions that stick out are going to have a little bit of a shiny reflective area there. And then we're going to take that base skin tone again, and we're going to make it darker and create shaded areas that are darker. So usually above the eye, it's just a little bit darker, right above the eye, and right in the corner of the eye is slightly darker. And then there's a little bit of a dark area here because it creates a little bit of depth around the portion of the eye that's sticking out towards the bottom, this bottom lip here. And there you have it, an eye. So that concludes this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok. And I have a shop online at Unabashedlyou. Everything will be linked below. God bless.